It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's Roy Millsy. Back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, show where I brew my version 1 deck list of the Commander for us on my quest out brew the Magic world. We're trucking on with week 3 of Murders at Karlov Manor content, and I've had a ton of fun brewing so far. I hope you guys have had fun watching. Today we're going to take a shot at a deck I didn't think I'd ever see or effectively see, which was Orzhov Superfriends. Now, there's a lot of ways that we could have done this with other commanders, but to be honest, I just never expected to see a commander that makes us, one, want to play Superfriends this much in Orzhov, and two, actually, I feel like pays us off for it. That's Tomik, Wielder of the Law. 3-mana, 2/4 human advisor. Has affinity for planeswalkers, so it's going to cast one less for each planeswalker we control. That's going to help with our commander attacks. Flying and Vigilance, great for a 2/4 in the air. And then whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you or planeswalkers we control, that opponent loses 3 life and we draw a card. I think one of the biggest threats of playing Superfriends and Commander is people are going to target those planeswalkers down immediately. And what I tried to do in this deck is take a lot of the lessons I learned from testing and playing my Kethis Superfriends deck, which is up on the channel, and bringing it into Orzhov. Orzhov has a lot more tax effects and different things that we could play around with, whereas maybe Kethis wasn't trying to. I kind of spun that deck more towards aristocrats. This one really isn't. There's some in there, because of course, why wouldn't you? With so many white and black planeswalkers that make tokens, so it just makes sense to have some sort of aristocrat sub-theme, but it's not our main sub-thing. I think we're going to focus more on proliferating if we can and generating value. But we're going to try to put enough creatures on the board to protect our planeswalkers so that even if our opponents attack into them, we can nullify the attacks and then still deal the damage to them in the process. So first we're going to talk about, planeswalkers, because we're trying to play planeswalkers. Then we'll talk about some of the key creatures in the deck and cards in the deck that are going to help Tomik out and filling our board, and then we'll get into a playtest. So, as you can see here from the selection of planeswalkers, one, this is not a cheap selection of planeswalkers. I think there's probably some in here that y'all would expect when you think about white and black for planeswalkers. I'll admit I am playing 1 or 2 stacks or kind of limiting effects. I'm not trying to play too many, but I think if our goal is to play planeswalkers, we need to play some of them that are going to hurt our opponents. I think one of the jewels for that is Karn the Great Creator, a planeswalker that's very well hated across multiple formats. Activated abilities of artifacts your opponent's control cannot be activated. It's going to shut down our opponent's mana rocks and things like that, which can make it kind of a feels bad card. And I think I would try to deploy Karn at the right time, because it can turn our artifacts into creatures, and it can get things back from exile, but it's definitely going to be here to slow our opponents down and get us to grind out for a little bit more. We're playing a couple of the planeswalkers that to me are pretty top tier when we talk about making tokens for planeswalkers. Liliana plays a double-edged sword in the deck as far as that goes. One, making a zombie, but also forcing everyone to sacrifice 2 and drawing us cards when creatures die. A perfect combination in hurting our opponents. Lolth makes 2 spiders each turn and gets a counter back on her every time one of those spiders dies, so great source of tokens there. We have things like Sorin Solemn Visitor making a token every turn, or can give all of our creatures +1/+0 and Vigilant or lifelink if we want to, so we can kind of pick and choose there. Elspeth making those 3 soldiers. Basriket can make some soldiers as we attack with non-token creatures. Elspeth can both make a soldier or kind of buff a creature, and then same thing with Sorin, can make a vampire or give us some draw. So we have a good selection of these planeswalkers, along with Tebezat, that can make tokens as well, that can either be there to block, sacrifice for other effects, or just generally be used for value. But none of our planeswalkers are that. We have things like Ob Nixilis, which can deal some damage to our opponent. Gideon Blackblade, if we get it beefed up, can be some removal. Sorin is one of my favorite white-black planeswalkers, and just giving all of our creatures and planeswalkers lifelink on our turn, which can gain us a bunch of life back and try to mitigate some of our opponents targeting us. One of my favorite ones in the deck, especially if we can set up a few token creators, is Kaya Ghost Hunter. Her -2 says until end of turn, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many tokens are created instead, which is pretty great because we can start amassing tokens and doubling up on them. Kaya the Inexorable can exile a permanent. The new Kaya Spirits of Justice is kind of interesting. One or more creatures you control and/or creatures in your graveyard are put into exile. We can choose a creature card from among them until end of turn. We make a target token become a copy of it. So, if someone exiles a creature we control or something, we can kind of get a temporary copy of it. Surveilling 2, creating a 1/1. And then it says exile target creature you control for each other player, exile up to one target creature that player controls, kind of a mini Grasp of Fate type effect, which is kind of fun. Again, there's a lot of Planeswalkers in this deck that have cool effects. Eternal Wanderer can be a brutal board wipe to our opponents, so I like the kind of utility we have here. But getting into our creatures, this is where we're really going to start to making it not only hard for our opponents to attack us, but really detrimental. Archon of Absolution, making them have to pay 1 for each creature. Attacks us Windborn Muse, having them have to pay 2. So as you can see, we're just going to start taxing a little bit. Anaki Oathkeeper, again, making them pay 1. That's attacking a Planeswalker we control instead of just us, which is still good enough. Things like Thaliar having their creatures come in tapped. Kambal is going to be punishing them for playing spells, and Mangara is going to be drawing us cards. We have things like Mondrak just doubling the amount of tokens we get, which is still helpful. The cool part about this deck is almost all of those taxes are underneath to power, so that new Delny Straightwise Lookout from this set that doubles up triggered abilities of power 2 or less is going to double almost all of these. It'll double Windborn Muse, it'll double the Anaki. And so that's pretty cool because then, and even double Kambal. So that's pretty cool because it can start hurting our opponents a little bit. Brina, the commander of that Strixhaven Precon, just seems like a good time drawing cards and passing out counters as we see fit. On our creatures, it gets a little bit scarier. Norn Squiremaster and Grateful Apparition can proliferate, giving all of our Planeswalkers another loyalty counter, and that seems pretty darn good. Orzhov Adkivist is another fun one. Beginning your upkeep, each player may put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature they control. If they do, they can't attack us or Planeswalkers we control until our next turn. This can be used to kind of convince our opponents to go elsewhere and give us time to set up. Shadrix has a fun ability, making tokens or making players draw things. It's a great card to play a little bit of politics and give your opponents the thing we want. The Peregrine Dynamo is one of my favorite cards in Planeswalkers decks because you can tap it to copy a Planeswalker loyalty ability that we activated, giving us double the value. Thalise is a card I really enjoy in a deck like this. Beginning of the end step, X/1/1 Spirits, where X is the number of tokens we created this turn, again, just doubling up. Using things like a Lost Soul Core to gain life when they come in, and having each opponent lose one when they die. And we're going to pair that up with... of course, ways to sacrifice those tokens and things like Skull Clamp. But what's interesting to me is Luxior is a card that's gotten a lot of play when it comes to Planeswalkers, turning Planeswalkers into creatures where their power and toughness is equal to the number of loyalty counters on it, and that's pretty great because then those get pretty big and they start threatening our opponents. I love Luxior on a commander or a Planeswalker like Liliana, where it's just gonna if you don't need to get it big, it can get big. Or something like Lulth, that just whenever a creature dies, you put a loyalty counter on it, and it can get really big with Luxior, and that's pretty darn cool. But two of the cards I'm really excited to play in the deck because they've come out recently, and they're really cool for these Planeswalker decks are the talent cycle from March of the Machines commander decks. Elsewise Talent, you can enchant a Planeswalker, and it gives that Planeswalker that Elsewise ability to create 3 1/1s. But it says whenever we activate the loyalty ability of enchanted Planeswalker, creatures we control get +2/+2 in Vigilance. Gives us some way to kind of go wide and potentially threaten our opponents that way. And then the Liliana's Talent, giving it a -8, put all creature cards from all graveyards on the battlefield under your control. And it says whenever a creature deals damage to enchanted Planeswalker, destroy that creature. So hey, some fun ways to kind of buff our Planeswalkers and give us some added value. We're going to try to control the board, make a bunch of tokens, and just try to snuff our opponents out over the course of a game. But let's get into a playtest. Keeping a 2-lander with Orzhov's Signet. Kambal's pretty cool. It's the early of the game. Lae'zel helps add tokens to our Planeswalkers as they come down. We see one Planeswalker in Gideon, ally of Zendikar, which can make tokens or make himself into a big creature, and Clever Concealment for some protection. So turn 1, we get that swamp down. We're going to be looking to get this Orzhov Signet down next turn. Oath of Kaya is pretty cool. When it comes in, deal 3 to any target, we gain 3. And then whenever an opponent attacks a Planeswalker we control with one or more creatures, it deals 2 damage to that player, and we gain 2 life. It's kind of like Tomik's effect there. Turn 2, get down that cave and get down the Signet. We have no reason to play. Obviously, I think that's our best play here. Obviously, everything we have in our hand is 3 mana, and so get the Signet down for next turn. Turn 3, we have access to one of our spells, and then that Swords Plowshares. I kind of like Cabal here, starting to kind of eat away at our opponents a little bit. Whenever they cast a non-creature spell, they take some life. We gain some life. Hold up Swords to Plowshares. So I would go 1, 2. I guess the Fetid Heath for 3, and then leave that Caves of Koilos up so we can play the swords just in case, someone puts something down big at the start of the turn, so we want to get rid of it. Turn 4, we go through the Gatewatch. We can search for a Planeswalker, reveal it, and put it to our hand, which is a great card if that's what we want to do. We don't have enough mana for Gideon. I'm just trying to think of what Planeswalker I would want right now. A couple of the Sorens aren't bad. A couple of the Kayas wouldn't be bad. Kind of like the idea of just getting Gideon down here and zeroing it to get a 2/2. And that way Tomik costs a little bit less, just down to 2 mana. Next turn here we draw Sorin, which can make a 2/2 vampire, or give everything +1/+1 and lifelink, which is another great ability. So we could call here to get something we want. We could also just play the Sorin, which I think I'm kind of down to do. Make a 2/2 here, make another 2/2 with Gideon. Just get some tokens on the board, start to get us to have a little bit of a buffer with zone, so we can be blocking for our Planeswalkers. We see Shadowy Backstreet, the new land comes in. We surveil 1, and we reveal a Unstable Glyph Bridge, a very interesting board wipe in its own, and can flip over into a artifact creature that can get pretty fun and stop people from doing some interesting things. So I like the idea of keeping it on top, but at the same time, I mean, it wouldn't be bad to have a board wipe. We do have some protection, though, for our board. I think I'd probably just been in. Unfortunately, I saw the next card, which I didn't mean to, but I guess that is what it is. I guess I just slammed Tomik here. It's only costing us 2. We could play something for 2 more, but I don't really see anything else we can do. I'd like to just keep that Clever Concealment up. We have enough to protect our entire board with it, and to move into the next turn. Next turn, we draw Gideon Blackblade, a Planeswalker I really like because it can give something Vigilance, Lifelink, or Indestructible to end a turn, and work up towards 6 to exile something, and it's just a 4/4 on our turn. I kind of like the idea with the Kaya. I like the idea of Lae'zel, because the cool part about Lae'zel is when you're plussing up your abilities, you're getting extra counters on them, which feels pretty darn good. I think that's what I'd probably do. That might give us an excuse this turn to make Gideon into something, and +1 Sorin to give some lifelink to our board if that's what we want to do, and maybe take an attack. We'll go one more turn, Isolated Chapel to get up to 6 mana. I think I like Gideon here, and leaving up mana for that Clever Concealment or Swords Plowshares. I'd probably go, I don't know, token, make Tomik indestructible, maybe, and get some attacks in if we can. But again, we're just trying to build up this board here. I like this board a lot, and all we need is, with the protection we have, all we need is someone to try to wipe the board, or someone to put themselves in a bad position, try to attack us, block out, deal some life to them. I think we're in a good spot here. Cabal's hurting people, Tomik's going to hurt people, and I think we just survive a couple more turns and find a better spot to take a bigger attack. But let me know, what do you think of Tomik down in the comment section below. Like I said, interesting deck. Obviously, I don't think my deck's perfect, but I think it's down the right steps. I'd love to hear what you guys think of what you'd add, what I missed. If you're building Tomik, I'd love to know what pieces you added that I missed, and I will catch you guys next time.